Okay, great. Thank you. So good morning, well, afternoon, just I should say hello to everyone. As Sarah said, I'm at the University of Washington in Seattle, Washington. I am the Research Data Services Librarian, but my role also extends to to help with research data management at the other campuses we have, which include in Tacoma and Bothell, which are in the Puget Sound region. Um, and I've been doing this for a little over 10 years. As Sarah said, I'm new to the Dryad board. And I'm excited to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit today about our decision to go with Dryad as a data repository and some of the reasons why we did that and some of the kind of local factors that fed into that decision. Sarah, can you advance the slide, please? Yeah, so, that's good, that's good. So I mentioned that, well, I'm going to talk a little bit about the decision to go with Dryad. Well, I'm gonna back up. I'm gonna go to this slide first. So UW at a glance, we're a very large R1 research institution. We receive a lot of federal funding. I have here a quote from one of our recent annual reports saying we receive about 1.67 billion in total research dollars, and that's federal and non-federal sources. But Sarah, if you could advance the slide again. You'll see here how it breaks down. So NIH is part of that top bar there in the Department of Health and Human Services, and then you see our other top funders below. And where I'm going with that is that A, there's a lot of research happening on our campus, but then B, when the NIH announced that their new DMS data management and sharing plan was going to go into effect, this is about a year ago, is when our Office of Research kind of got a fire lit under them to make sure that there was some sort of system-wide, institution-wide solution for our researchers to be compliant with the NIH rules. So we were at the libraries, and the folks I work with in other departments on campus, we were obviously already working with a lot of people on data management plans and data sharing. But what the institutional support meant is that there was kind of a much wider interest and a lot of support coming from a lot of different places that maybe historically hadn't been too involved. Let's see. Can you do the next slide, please? So a little bit about where we were at a year ago. We have an institutional repository called ResearchWorks. It was built on DSpace also, and it was built primarily to house our electronic theses and dissertations. And over the last 10 years or so, 8, there has been obviously a very large increase in the number of people who wanted to deposit data or other digital materials along with their theses and dissertations. And we also started taking an increasing number of white papers and preprints and things like that. We have a small ITS staff at this time, and so updating DSpace to be our data repository in addition to the ETD repository or document repository wasn't working quite the way we wanted it to. We had a committee over a couple years looking at expanding into an external solution versus building one in-house. And it became kind of obvious that it was going to be more cost effective for us and a little simpler to go with an outside solution. In the interim, what was happening is the small data sets, like less than 2 gigabytes, could go into ResearchWorks. We worked with different researchers from different disciplines, as well as people working with digital scholarship who had digital materials, to find a lot of external repositories prior to having Dryad. And then, then backing up with a previous slide, when we had this kind of institutional support, this groundswell that was happening around NIH, it became much easier to sort of build a case that Dryad might be the right solution for us. Another thing I wanted to point out too is that University of Washington, as many institutions, has a growing number of researchers that are working in data science. And so there's a lot of people who have an increasing number of data sets and then also larger data sets. And Sarah, your earlier slide kind of bore out with that about the increasing size of data. So next slide, please. We kind of made the decision, we made the decision to join Dryad over the months in about a year ago, like I mentioned, the last few months in 2022. And part of the reason we went with Dryad, we took cast a wide net for other options for an external repository. But being on the West Coast, we were very familiar with the California Digital Library efforts around data curation and sharing. The fact that Dryad offers data curation was very helpful to us. We have a small data services staff that at our institution. I know some institutions have multiple full-time people devoted to data. Ours is rather small, so we needed something that that offered this service. To the fact that it kind of reduced the burden for local staff was pretty big for us. The fact that it was also an approved generalist repository by NIH and others was really big. The fact that journals are increasingly pointing depositors to it as an option. The fact that it's nonprofit and community governed really made all this kind of fed into this decision that Dryad was starting to look like the most obvious choice for us. And I wanted to point out too that, even though we are a large research institution, that the fact that we have a small data staff and a small amount of funding that can go towards data curation and data sharing, this really became key for us because we didn't have a ton of money that we could throw out building an in-house solution with a ton of staff. So Dryad really fit the bill for us. Can you go to the next slide, please? And one of the, I'm going to run through some of the reasons here that it really has worked out extremely well for us. With the NIH push toward their new data management and sharing plan, there's obviously going to be other funders that kind of fall in with a very similar plan, I think, in very short order. And all of this is in support of the ideas and ethics behind data sharing and open science. And so you see those funder requirements. The OSTP memo, like I said, I think is going to create new policies and standards coming out of other funders. At our institution, it really pushed for a need for researcher and institutional compliance. Our Office of Research was really concerned and wanted to make sure that our researchers that were working with NIH at this time had a place to put their data, and it was going to be easy for their researchers. It was going to be something that was simple and fit into their workflows. And all of this kind of fed into this decision to go with Dryad. The fact that they support fair data and are also in support of the CARE principles is very big for us. We have been teaching with, and educating researchers on these principles for many years. Having a solution that fits right in with those concepts is really huge for us. And then the fact that they use persistent IDs is really big for us because trying to just keep track of where researchers are depositing data, allowing researchers to track data as part of their measurable research impact, including the output of non-written materials like your data, your code, other digital materials. Those are valid research outputs, and having a way to point to them, share them, and have folks be able to track their usage over time is really big. So that's, it was really all of that very key for the University of Washington, not only to support their researchers, but be part of this global effort towards open research and open data sharing. Next slide, please. I mentioned that it allows us to meet with researcher and funder requirements. I just wanted to share a couple of nice feedback emails that we received right off the bat, where researchers were very positive about this. We have a large number of researchers who were already using Dryad at the University of Washington, but of course, with our institutional membership, having them not have to find funding to deposit their data was really big because the institutional model covered the cost for them. And the ease of research that we've had over the last 10 months has been really key for us. People are not complaining. They're having a real easy time, and we've had a steady growth in the number of deposits that were going in. So far, this has worked extremely well for our population, and we've been really happy with it. And I think that's my last slide.